All right. What's up, everyone? I want to welcome Sam Hodgett to the podcast today. Sam is a longtime friend of mine. Like we've been like internet friends for a really long time and kind of like running the same circles for a period of years here. And all centered around like digital marketer, probably like a little bit of TNC, a lot of Russell Brunson and like Inner Circle and all that kind of stuff. And so, Sam, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Yeah, Jimmy, it's great to be here. Yeah, we connected as of the time of this recording a couple weeks ago at the final Funnel Hacking
Oh,
Live. So, uh, yeah, it's great to be here, man. Good to
did
be on the
did it
show.
hurt to be at the final Funnel Hacking Live?
My experience probably isn't as sincere as yours, being more on the
Mm,
inside, but yeah, it's I've heard several people describe an event like that as like the internet marketing reunion, high school reunion.
right, right.
You see people in person like you. I think I don't know if that's the first time we met in person, but you interact with people in person that you've been friends with online for years, or
Exactly.
people you haven't seen since 5 years ago at
Yeah,
another event somewhere else. So it was a
yeah.
lot of fun. Definitely some nostalgia. It was actually my first time in Vegas, so that was kind of fun too.
Uh, you've never missed much. It's actually ironic
Yeah.
for all the different like internet marketing conferences and all that different stuff that we all go to. I started when I was about 18 years old,
Wow.
and I had been to three different conferences in Las Vegas, all before the age of 21. That means that
Wow.
like if it was 11 o'clock or beyond, like I wasn't allowed to be anywhere, so I just had to like go up to my room and like watch TV and pass out,
That's
I guess,
funny.
and like actually get sleep. But finally, this one, it was like got to go out to some networking events and like be on the casino floor, and so very very different. Even though that was what 12 years ago. Jeez. Oh man,
Time flies, man.
I feel it. So Sam, I hope you'll forgive me. I wanted to start our conversation off today actually being a little selfish for myself.
Of
And I
course.
wanted to ask you a
Yeah.
favor right here as we're getting started. I
Of
noticed
course.
that your oldest photo on Facebook is actually one of you and your baby. I think your baby's sleeping, but basically it's a really close up shot of like you and one of your babies. Um, I'm about to be a father of two. My first boy
Yeah.
is 1.5. He's
Hmm.
amazing, incredible. Um, you know what? There's a big wood table right here, so I'm gonna knock on it. That like,
There you go.
he's just like our dream baby. He's amazing and incredible. Um, baby number two is also a boy. So, I don't know what the future holds for me, but I kind of wanted to ask you, like,
Congrats.
yeah, thank you, I appreciate it. My wife is very outnumbered now because our dog is also a boy, so she's just in a house full of boys at this point. So,
Nice.
what what am I in for? What's about to happen? Because you've got multiple
Mm.
kids, correct?
Yes. Yeah, we have
So
three now.
amazing. What am I in for here?
Man, good question. Quick side note, it's funny about the Facebook profile thing. I actually had one, like I was an OG Facebooker back in like probably 2006,
Oh, okay.
2005, when it first launched.
Right.
I deleted it probably 2013, 2012. And then I started a new one. So it's funny, you go on there, it says I've only been on there for like 12 years. I've actually been on there for probably like 18 or 19 years, but for like 1 month, I turned it off. And then all my pictures and stuff from before then just gone, which is probably a good
Oh,
thing, let's be honest.
yeah.
Because those were not necessarily the best days. No, man, being a parent is, gosh, it's the greatest joy, I will say there's a big difference between one and two, and now that we have three, there's a bigger difference between two and three. Um, you may have heard people say this before, but when you're shooting for that third, the best way to describe it is you go from man to man defense to zone defense.
Zone coverage?
You know,
Yeah, I have
when
heard
you
that.
when
Yeah.
when you have two kids, it's like you could each be with one, and that's fine. And kids need our attention, right? I can't emphasize enough how important it is to spend as much time as you can with each child, not just your family, but like one-on-one time. It's just so important, especially in those younger
Okay.
years. So when you have more than one, or certainly when you have more than two, I can't tell you how many times, even in the last year, I've had to say, "Hey, I'm sorry, you're the oldest child. The two youngest need mommy and daddy, so you need to go read or
Yeah.
whatever." Um, but yeah, I mean that's probably the biggest piece of advice I give people. That's maybe not normal advice, but is super helpful. Is like plan one-on-one time, no matter how old or young they are. Even if your oldest is only a year and a half, right? They're maybe
Right.
just starting to talk and just it's really important to have that quality time, especially as they get older, because when you're in a family setting, when there's multiple kids, um, it's really hard to connect with them. And that those have been some of the biggest moments of connection with each of my children when I'm able to just set them aside and just be like, "Hey, how are you today?" We call
Yeah.
them dates. So my wife and I try to go on a date with each of our children, at least once a month. So at least once a month, and I would say that's a minimum, but once a month or once a week, whatever
Yeah.
rhythm works, just be like, "Hey, we're gonna go get a donut, or we're gonna go take a walk at the park, or we're gonna go kick a ball. Just me and you, no one else." So that's really important too. And I think the other thing is, as the family grows, being a parent and an entrepreneur at the same time, it's important to understand the personal needs of each other, you and your wife. So, and everyone's different, right?
Right.
But, in my scenario, I retired my wife several years ago so she could do what she wants to do. Not every woman wants this, I understand, but my wife wants to be a stay-at-home mom. She loves it. We're actually considering homeschooling next year. So, but even in that moment, it's easy for me to come home and be like, "Oh, I had a long day, busy day, lots of calls. I'm on Zoom all day, and especially in the summer when all the kids are home, it's like, you have no idea what I've been through. I need some alone time.
Yeah.
So just understanding those balances of what you need as individuals, with you and your wife, and making time for that. So if it's a side hustle, it's like, hey, being super practical. I know I'm going to need one evening a week where I can stay late and work on this thing, right? Or I need an hour after bedtime, or I need to wake up an hour earlier. Um,
I've just been
and
personally
another
forsaking
piece
my
of
own
that too
sleep.
that you don't always. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
No, me too. I maybe to the detriment, but on that note of sleep too, bedtime and really other routines, bedtime, baths, meals, you have to be intentional, right? Like, who's doing this kid at bedtime versus that kid, and who's like bathing and meals, and even if, like in my case, my wife stays at home and I'm working all day, I can't expect her to do everything around the house. That's not our values, right? And everyone's got different values, but for us, I want to make sure she doesn't feel like she doesn't get any help, right? So not just for me helping, but also training up our children to be attentive, to say, "Hey, mom's struggling, or there's something here," rather than expecting someone else to do it. Being proactive and
Yeah.
being a part of the family. We recently went through this book called Habits of the Household. And it's a phenomenal book for really anyone, but especially young families with children. And it just gives really practical, it's from a Christian worldview, but very practical advice on things from bedtime to mealtime to discipline to, trying to think. There's like 7 or 8 things. So,
Right.
yeah, those are some good tips.
Yeah, I'm seeing like you it feels like you're describing a like a process that's I understand that like it's a family, so it's like never finished. Or like I work on software too, and so it's like it's software, it's never
Right.
finished. But I feel like your like your family process is just like so far along, and there's very obvious things that like that I struggle with, and that like my wife is struggling with, and that like we're trying to do our best, and like we're just like changing as like a new family with one
Yeah.
baby, and then oh boy,
Right.
here comes baby number two, and then how much more
Right.
chaos is that gonna add to the equation here. So
Right.
I really wanted to ask this question because I was like, all right, here's somebody who like has a good bit more figured out than me. It's like a really great selfish opportunity, but also like we're gonna publish this out. So hopefully anybody else who's a new dad or new double dad or new triple dad or anything like that, like listen to Sam. He knows what's up. So
Well, and let me tell you, before you move on, you're never going to figure it out. And I feel the same way about parents that are maybe 5 or 10 years ahead of us. And I look at them and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so far behind. And I think what's really important with that, and this honestly applies to business, this applies to families, um, and this I reference this book again, but Habits of the Household, and some other parenting. My wife and I've gone through parenting classes, and which honestly, like, how as entrepreneurs, how willing are we to spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on education and coaching,
yeah, I've
and
done
yet
it. Yeah,
we balk when our wife wants us to read a $10 book or a $10 to $50 class, and
yeah,
I've tried to change the script personally where it's like I want to spend as much time, money, and resources on my family as I do on my business. And so we've been
okay,
trying to be really intentional about, whether it's therapy, whether it's a class, whether it's a book that we're going through together, groups at our local church, just to really increase those relationships. But what I was getting at is um, it's really important to understand what your family values are, and just like with business, right? With business, you got your kind of your core branding of your mission and your values and your purpose and all those things. It's equally as important to have that for a family. And it's, I've been the young guy, right? I've had one kid, and you don't realize how important these things are until your family starts growing up. Your kids start speaking and talking and going to school and having reasoning
right,
conversations with other people. And then you have multiple kids, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm not just babysitting. I'm actually
yeah,
raising an adult. And when you think of parenting as raising an adult, you realize how much
ooh,
more important and powerful your job is as a parent.
hmm,
And so having clear values, having a mission statement, one of the values for our family is having fun. So if we're looking at a day or an evening or an opportunity where it's like, what can we do in this moment? And maybe it's just like, hey, we need to do something after dinner, or we need to emphasize something for our family. It's like, well, we want to have fun as a family. So what's something we can do that's fun? Maybe it's a big vacation. Maybe it's just going to the local park and kicking around a ball.
yeah,
Sometimes the simplest things are the ones that are most cherished by your kids. But it's important to have those values up front so that you can use that as a filter and a lens. So when you're making decisions or you're talking to your spouse or you're deciding whether or not you should do this thing with your family or this thing with your friends, it becomes a lot easier to make those decisions because of the values that, you've established. And once your kids are old enough, involve them in that process because
right,
like, our kids are still, our oldest is 10. And so most of our kids are still pretty young, but as much as we can, we want to say like, hey, what's important? Like, what should we do? When we're having those conversations, because and I've seen that translate into being an entrepreneur too, because as I have people that I work with and that report to me or that are on my team or whatever it is, I want to make sure that they're not just a means to an end. They're not just, oh, I'm babysitting you, but like, no, I actually have the opportunity to help you and your goal, not just you helping me and mine.
yeah, dang, oh my gosh, I don't even. I don't think I knew what I was gonna get when I asked that question, and I'm actually because it was kind of like off the cuff. I was like, man, he's got three kids. I wonder, like, maybe we can just like do this like quick at the beginning. And I'm like, dang, like, I feel like that could be an entire podcast episode. Is like
Oh, I'm sure it
fatherhood,
could. Episode 2.
husbandry.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Well, we can still talk about all the impact stuff too. Like, we'll just figure out like episode two and what we're gonna do next. So basically, okay. So Sam, the last time that you and I were talking, we were in person. Actually, you alluded to it earlier. And we were in this like dim lit, like nightclub esque type of scenario. It's the bad marketing event, stemming from
Yeah.
Funnel Hacking Live, and we're there We're both like completely exhausted beyond measure because we're out like playing our hearts out at and learning as much as we can at FHL and making as many meaningful connections as possible. So when
Right.
we chatted, you mentioned like having a discussion about side hustles
Yeah.
and like our impact and our network with them. What is your side hustle and what is like your like main job that you like have a side hustle from?
Yeah. It's interesting because, if you had asked that question to me 6 months ago and 12 months ago and 18 months ago, you know, every 6 months, my answers would be different. And I think that's the
Okay.
interesting thing about online business specifically and entrepreneurship and, finding what works for you because, my story has not been consistent. Now, some people, they start a business and they are able to just focus on that for 10 years, or they have a job and they really like it and they're content with that, you know, regardless of what a side hustle may or may not look like in either of those situations. For me, I've always struggled with focus and consistency, um, which, you know, like anything in life, you can look at something as an obstacle or an opportunity, right? There's a lot of buzz in the entrepreneur space right now about like, oh, I'm ADHD and here's my superpower. And I think people probably, I know for sure that something like ADHD is overdiagnosed and people
Yeah.
self-diagnose themselves
I'm pretty certain of it too,
imp-
yeah.
improperly. And having said that, though, I think entrepreneurs are generally, um, probably more often than not, um, I would say somewhere on the in the realm of neurodivergent. And I almost said in the spectrum of, but I'm not specifically talking about autism or ASD.
Right.
But although that could possibly be the case too. I mean, you look at who's the richest person in the world, right? Elon Musk. It very clearly is neurodivergent, and yet he's the richest person in the world. So
Right.
all that to say, okay, lost my train of thought for a sec. Hold on. Here we go. There's perfect example. What I there's it's either an opportunity or it's an obstacle,
Right.
and oftentimes I've used the fact that I have a hard time being consistent or finishing things or whatever as an excuse, right? Oh, I'm really good at starting things. My strength finders, my top 3 strength finders are futuristic, ideation, activation, right? I'm really good at coming up with ideas and getting them going, which is a struggle as an entrepreneur because I mean, even today, I probably had 2 or 3 different ideas that have nothing to do with anything I'm working on right now. So, to answer your question, what I'm focusing on primarily right now, and for the foreseeable future, is I work with a guy named Joe McCall. He's a real estate investing coach. He's been in the industry for 10 to 15 years. Really, really good at what he does. He's super genuine. He's a real marketer. Any of us that have been in the service based business within marketing understand when you're working with a client who's a marketer and a client who's not a marketer, right?
Oh yeah.
And I
Yeah.
always prefer to work with marketers because even if they're telling me things that I don't know, I still get to do it for them and help with the execution. And I've always really, really enjoyed that. Joe being a really great example of that. My relationship with Joe, just real briefly, started like 8 years ago now. He was a client for 3 or 4 years, and then 2 to 3 years, and then he brought me on full time as a marketing director.
Okay.
So really, right before COVID hit, I jumped in with him full time, which is a blessing in disguise, of course, because who knew what was going to happen with COVID and lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. Um, and it wasn't until a year and a half ago, as of the recording of this, that I started getting the entrepreneurial itch to kind of do my own thing. And so I ended up, renegotiating with him and basically transitioning from full time employee to contractor so that I could kind of work that within, a space of having multiple clients and having different offers for myself. Long story short, that took on many different forms. Like I was saying, like over the last year and a half. So like every 6 months, like that situation changed. There were seasons where I was kind of working with someone else, mostly full time. There were seasons when I just had multiple clients, kind of going in and out of like trying to start trying to like scale a business versus like just doing freelance work. And I think there's a very big distinction between like having some freelance clients and trying to build an agency, right? And this last go around, I had a really great idea, and honestly, I still think it's a great idea. But I just didn't have. I was in a situation where I didn't have the runway or the bandwidth to execute it well. So I ended up getting to the point where I had another conversation with Joe, and he really wanted to bring me back. Sorry about that. He really wanted to bring me back full time, and it was the right opportunity for me. And so and he brought me in more as a partner than as an employee. So I'm doing
Right.
that, and I run all of his marketing. Basically I'm responsible for revenue and growth. And in that situation now, so it's been a few months. It's been really good, and at per the conversations we've been having, just started realizing, having worked with Joe before, and then in that season of about a year and a half to 2 years where I wasn't with him full time, but even in that season, probably 30 to 50% of that time, I was more or less dedicated with someone else. I started realizing that I work really well as a number two or within an organization. But there's a few caveats that I started realizing, because of, and this doesn't apply to everyone, but for me, because of the nature of like what my strengths are and my skills and experiences. I'm really good with understanding and coming up with marketing strategy. So I really like being a part of the strategy conversations. I don't necessarily have to be the leader. I don't
Right.
have to be in control, but I want to be a part of it. I want to play a role in that. And then executing on that strategy when it comes to funnels, when it comes to automation, when it comes to traffic, when it comes to conversions and the tech side of things, and even the copywriting. And so it, and as someone who's entrepreneurial, if I'm bringing a ton of value to an organization or a brand, and the brand continues to grow, but my income is not growing with it, then my value is disproportionate to the
Right.
value I'm providing. And so I started realizing that. And so when Joe and I had the conversation again, it was really important for me to say, I want to see there be more of a connection to, the value I provide to the business, and the way that's reflected in my compensation. Um, with that, I'm not working 240 hours a week for one person. So I still have time, so to speak, to pursue other things. And one thing I like about the idea of a side hustle, or, having sort of a main source of income, is it gives you more time and freedom to really build something else the way you want it to be built. So if I'm building a personal brand, but it's attached to a revenue source because I need it to feed that, and now everything I talk about online and all the content I create has to be around this certain topic, because if it's not, I'm not going to get business.
Right.
There's a lot more dependency on that, right? Whereas
You're a little more like boxed
with
in
when you
to the
have your sort of
conversation.
primary, right, exactly. But when you have a primary source of income where it's not tied to your personal brand or your content or anything that you're kind of putting out there, you have a little bit more independence as to what that is. So, for example, I went to school. I was a classically trained vocalist. I went to school for music. For a very short period of time, I was pursuing a full time career in music. I ended up going the church route as opposed to the professional route, which is a whole nother story. But all that to say, music's a big part of my life. It always has been. I really love to sing. I love to perform, but I very early on realized I didn't want to pursue that as a career. So the
Yeah.
question is, how do I pursue a passion like that without having to tie it to a dollar amount? Not that I don't want to, generate brand and influence and potentially income from it, but it's not necessarily even my primary aim. But now that I'm in a position where I have a primary source of income, my expenses are taken care of, my family's taken care of, I can create other things, not necessarily as pure passion projects, but I have the time and capacity to sort of form them and shape them the way I want. So to answer the first part of your question, what is my side hustle right now? I'm actually working on that, and I'm kind of giving myself time to work on it, which is kind of funny that the timing of this conversation is literally in the middle of what am I going to do? Because for professionally speaking, the last 10 plus years have been almost exclusively focused on internet marketing. Particularly within the high ticket coaching space. Most of my clients, most of the offers that I've worked on have been kind of in that space, and it's hard for me to think about creating something outside of that space, with the exception of music, because I can always go and do music, because of the talent that I have. So I think uh, I really don't know, but one idea I've had, and I've kind of been kicking around this last few months with content here and there, is this idea of like, there's so many people, and you've probably talked to a lot of people too, and because of your position and your experience, where they see your success, they see the results you're providing for yourself or for your clients. They want to learn from you, but you either A, don't have a program for them to learn in, or B, you don't have time to have coffee with everyone, or C,
Yeah.
you don't want to necessarily build, my case, like I don't want to build a high ticket program for myself. I don't want to be stuck to, daily or weekly calls. And I know you can leverage things, and there's a whole another conversation there. But so I think for me, it's probably going to be some form of like I don't know if it's a membership or some sort of low ticket thing where it's like, hey, listen, I'm just going to share what I'm doing. I'm going to try, and the brand that I'm kind of working with is Watch Sam Build. So whether I'm building a business or I'm building a music YouTube channel or I'm building someone else's brand or I'm building a funnel or I'm
Hmm.
writing a book, it just kind of showing the behind the scenes. I really like behind the scenes content. I almost would prefer to watch that over the actual like movie or
Right.
something. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. And so many entrepreneurs they hold the cards really tight to their chest. They don't want to share their secrets. And if they do, they're only going to do it in their $50,000, bloated mastermind program. For me,
Right.
I'm like, I just want to share what I'm doing. I don't want to hold anything back. Maybe it's behind a small like $5 paywall or something you know, just to work with people who are taking action. But
Well, you could just have it to
um,
self-liquidate
and if something like
the
that,
acquisition, right? Like, hey, just the everything you pay just
exactly.
feeds the
Yep,
next person, just feeds the next person, right?
exactly. Yeah, because again, for me, I'm not looking at that as a primary source of income. And that speaks to something too, because even if it's an entrepreneur, right, and someone's out there and they have a business and they have a main offer, whether it's high ticket or it's consulting or it's a SaaS or whatever it is, um, there is something to that idea of multiple streams of income or multiple streams of revenue, and even if it's within a single business, um, I think there's value in looking at, of course, in the realm of marketing, you have like the low ticket offers or the front end offers, and then you got your high ticket or your back end offers, right? But you can actually look at those as like separate streams of either leads or revenue or whatever. And so in my case, you know, in the situations where I've gone from something to something else, there's been situations where I've done that and I have nothing to show for it. I have no list. I have no audience. I have no, website. I mean,
Yeah.
I talk about a barefooted shoemaker, right? Like
Yeah.
I've built some pretty awesome shoes for people, but my feet are dirty and I've never. You can go to any of my websites right now, samuelhodgett.com, watchsambuild.com, funnel.ninja. None of them work. In fact, they
Yeah.
all lead to one page that says coming soon. And by the time this is published, it'll probably say the same thing. So yeah, I'm kind of in that process of building. This is kind of an idea I shared with you when we chatted. I know I'm not alone. And I know you're not alone. And I've talked to so many people that find themselves comfortable within someone else's organization or brand, and yet there's still an entrepreneurial pull. And so the question to answer that I want to help answer for myself and for others is how can you be a successful, employee or team member and also have a thriving, side business, personal brand, media channel, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And what does that look like to be the best team member over here that you can be, while on the other side you're also the best, showing up for your audience and your students and whatever. So it's interesting, and it's going to be different for everyone. Some people have more flexibility and time on the side, so they can actually build maybe a legit side business. Some people might have just a couple hours per week, so they have to pursue things that are more leveraged.
Right. That
Um,
makes sense.
so yeah.
I can tell you for me, the whole idea is like people kept coming to me for help. It's like, hey, I'm bought in on this vision. I'm bought in on this idea, but I need help executing it. I need help getting it done. And I'm just somebody who like can't help but help people. And so it ended up being like, yeah, sure, like let's get a coffee. Yeah, sure, let's, jump on a call. And I would like be able to unblock people and move them along inside of their journey so quickly just because like I know things. People have called me smart before. I wouldn't
Right.
call myself smart, but like people have called me smart before. Um so like for me it was okay, this is a way that like not just in like my a role at a job that I can drive change, I can drive transformation and drive impact, but like a lot of the stuff that I do is like 4, 6, sometimes even 8 months down the line, and I don't like see
Right.
the gratification of that immediately. And it's like, okay, I can get my hands
Yeah.
dirty right
Right.
now and drive change
Right.
for one person, or like that one person and their team, or that one person and their team and their employees, and then that like all the customers inside of that business and that organization as well. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is really cool. I have a unique opportunity here with like my
Yeah.
limited resource of time. But
Yep.
yeah, that's that's it.
Another aspect of it for me is, when I do work with someone one on one, it's at a premium. I'm really good at what I do, and I don't say that arrogantly. I say that with confidence. Like I've not only provided great success for people, but I've also charged a lot of money.
Right.
Usually when I'm in a situation where someone's paying me one on one, I oftentimes I won't usually do a project for less than $5,000, or potentially $5,000 a month, depending on I'm not really open to retainers right now, but and so I've always struggled with, and again, this is kind of unique to my situation, but I've always wanted to like help more people, but especially if someone's just starting out, like they shouldn't be paying me $5,000 or $10,000 or more.
Oh,
In
okay.
fact,
Can
I
we
think there's
pause
too
right there?
many. Oh
Can we
man,
pause?
this is a rabbit trail.
Yeah. So,
Yes,
well,
sure.
so like, okay, I feel that like on the virtue side, I feel that because they're already in a spot where it's
Mm-hmm.
like I need to get like from 0 to 1. I just need to start. I need to figure it out. But I've also found that like personally for me, and this probably isn't everyone's experience because I have a lot of different drivers that drive me
Mm-hmm.
uh, with my mental and my physical and my
Right.
spiritual and all that stuff. But I found that like the more it costs me, the more like ambitious and driven I am to see it through to the end and achieve a result out of it. Now, I'm not obviously at the age of 30, I'm not like starting from scratch. Like I have some resources to lean on, right?
Right.
But like
Of
even
course.
like programs that are like 5K, 15K, 25K, like jumping into programs like that has actually catapulted me even farther. It's collapsed more time for me. It's helped me achieve even greater results. So it's tough, but like I have a personal belief that like the more you sacrifice up front is like the further that you're going to go inside of that transformational journey. But what you're saying is it's a little to the opposite. Like I think, and like I'm not disagreeing with you because it's tough to get started, and like I feel that.
No, this is great.
I remember getting started. It was tough. Um, but yeah, what do you like? How do
I
you
think,
wrestle with that?
yeah, this is a great conversation, and I haven't even brought this up yet, but this has actually been top of mind for me for the past week, because I was just watching someone else make an offer. It was without giving too many details away, because I don't. This isn't about shade, but it
Sure.
was north of $20,000, and it was 100% focused on brand new people. It was like do your first thing, right? And I won't give details, but it was do your first thing. You know, it was a great entry level kind of like it was a 5 day challenge, right? And then they sold
Yeah.
the offer at the end. And when I saw the offer, I was just like, okay, I've been in this space for 10 years, right? I've worked on offers for brand new beginners all the way up to like high end B2B, you know, $100,000 packages, which I've sold. Um, but when you're at that entry level point where it's like you don't need experience, you don't need a degree, you don't need a license, you don't need education. Like I have a system you can follow to generate your first sale or create your first product or do your first real estate deal, right? Um, it's really important to understand your avatar first and foremost, because if your avatar is, for example, let's just say you're like, and this is something I have ruminated with in the past of, you know, helping expert based businesses sort of launch their online, you know, coaching program or whatever. But my avatar would be targeting people that are already like executives or high level, you know, entrepreneurs, or they've been a doctor for 20 years, or, you know, they have experience, resources, and pedigree. They're not starting from zero, right? A lot of these biz op opportunities or make
Yeah.
money online, they're presented as like, hey, you don't have to have a skill, you don't have to have experience. And listen, there's nothing wrong with this, by the way. I'm not throwing shade at the industry. I'm not saying you shouldn't do affiliate marketing or shouldn't create digital products or shouldn't do Amazon arbitrage or any of those things. I have friends that run really, really great offers. But this one I saw last week takes the cake because it was a brand new offer to a very specific niche that is a known niche to pursue um, emotional messages, if I'll put it that way. And they respond emotionally and they're caught up in the moment. And the price point to them probably doesn't matter. But the problem is when your entry level ticket for that particular thing is so astronomically high, there's no wiggle room for 99% of people out there, right? If we're looking at the average, we'll just say average American, right? And I don't know the numbers, but let's just say the average, you know, income is $50,000 a year, and the average debt is like $30,000, right? Which is probably pretty close to true.
Yeah.
Should that person that's working an average job, having an average amount of debt, take on another $20,000 to $30,000 in debt just for the potential idea of starting a new thing? And boy, the way this offer also had a no refund policy, which is technically illegal, and all these things. And I'm just like, we're doing people a disservice. And I actually was writing a post about it. I haven't posted it yet, and I don't know if I will. But I was writing a post because I was so frustrated because there's so many people out there that just need help, right? And they can't afford high ticket, right? That we're talking the people that are out there that can actually justifiably afford to spend $5, $10, $20,000 on something. Again, they're either already successful or they already have money or both. We're talking about like less than 1% of the adult population in America.
Yeah.
I can confidently say that. Now that's still 3 million people or whatever, 1 million people. But what about the 99%? How can they be helped in a way that's actually helping them and not hurting them? There's so many times where I've seen so many people spend 5, 10, 20, $30,000 on a credit card, on multiple credit cards. I mean, there's programs back in the day where they would literally train their salespeople to have people go and sign up for credit cards so that they could buy their program. Like, oh, step one, go to this website, sign up for that credit card, go sign up for that credit card. Now give us all that money. So now you have a bunch of debt. We're going to give you a course that's probably a little bit outdated. And good luck. And by the way, there's no refunds because we're not confident enough in our, you know, I
Dude,
think there needs
that's
to be a
insane.
disruption in the industry. Now, again, there's a difference between what your high ticket offer might be and this one that I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
You're targeting successful entrepreneurs or, you know, that already have it. Like for me, and this is bringing it back to my scenario, right? So if I'm doing done for you services, I've worked best with people that are already making $1 million. They already got a two comma club award, right? They already have a proven offer. They now need to put fuel on the fire. So for me, as a marketing consultant, as a funnel builder, as a copywriter, whatever tag you want to use, for me to help that person, okay, if you have a proven offer, you have a list of at least 10, 20, 30,000 people, you've generated multiple six, if not seven figures of revenue through that offer. I can help you go from 1 to 5 million within a year or two, right? That's what I that's a high ticket offer that I can stand behind. I can guarantee it, and I'm going to charge 20, 30, 40, $50,000 for that or more. I should,
Right.
right? If someone comes to me and like, hey, I want to start a business online. How do I create a digital product, or how do I start a course, or how do I start a YouTube channel? My first answer should not be pay me $30,000 and I'll tell you. Do you know what I'm saying? There's a difference between someone that's already successful.
Yeah.
Now, again, there's a scenario where that's appropriate, but in my opinion, they have to have a high level of success in some other area that they're able to bring over, or they already have the money and they're able to invest it because they're already a higher net worth individual. But if they're
Yeah.
like the average American with an average job and the average amount of debt and an average lack of intelligence, if I can say that, they're not, they shouldn't be paying that $20,000, $30,000.
Right.
So for me, because my high ticket offers have always been focused on people that are already successful, they already have a big thing. I felt guilty because I'm like, I want to help those people, and there's too many people out there that are taking advantage of that population. So I want to go out in there and say, hey, you know what? I have something that's not $30,000. It's not even $1,000, and it's going to give you everything you need. Not because it's practical, and there's going to be a certain person that's going to be attracted to that. And if I can get it to the point where then they're in a position where they can hire me or they can hire someone else because they're seeing the initial success and they're ready to invest more into it. I think it all comes down to, are you trying to get people to invest in an idea or to invest in something that already exists, right? If you already have experience, you already have a business, you already have whatever, and you can help someone take that and amplify it, great. Charge them whatever. Myron
Yeah.
Golden's like, if I'm going to make you $1 million, you should be able to pay me 100 grand. Of course. But if that person has nothing to start with, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, pay me 10, 20, $30,000, it's 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 in most cases it's wrong. I'll just say it that
Yeah.
way.
Okay. I see. So we just needed a little more context, a little more flashlight on the situation. Which like.
Yeah.
You and I are absolutely 1,000% on the same page. All the people that I work with, they've already hit like that 7-figure level, and they're looking for like maybe slight
Of
pivots,
course.
like new offers, new channels, different directions like that. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
100%.
So I love the idea of you going out and helping people that just aren't there yet. Maybe they need to make their first 10K just to be able to see that like this selling stuff on the internet thing really works. Like I've been buying stuff on the internet for decades,
Right.
right? But now I can go out and I can sell stuff and I can, actually make an income for myself, which is amazing. Um, so Sam, something else, because I
Yep.
spent a good bit of time on Facebook earlier. Um, I also came across a photo of you just completely studding it up with your shirt off. Um, I'm pretty sure that you had mentioned that you are starting a like a weight loss journey. What's up with that? What are you looking at doing with
Oh,
yourself?
oh man. Wow. Calling me out. Oh, wow. Okay. Life is a journey, and every journey has steps. And sometimes you take a step and you fall flat on your face. And sometimes you take a step up a hill and you slide all the way back down to the beginning of the hill. Um, my fitness journey has been a journey to say the least. I wasn't sure which picture you're talking about because there's one picture from like 14 years ago where I was shirtless and I was like actually looking pretty good, but yeah, it was a few pounds ago. Um, I so I have it's been a struggle. I'll just be honest. And there's a whole, man, this is like a can of worms too, but um, there's as human beings we have I don't know, maybe everyone thinks like this, but only until recently have I thought about this that like health, true health is holistic, right? There's physical, mental,
Right.
spiritual, emotional, and even within physical, you got like nutritional health, you got like muscular health, you got whatever, right?
Yeah.
And there's been moments or seasons of my life where I've taken my health more seriously than other moments. And as entrepreneurs, it's so easy to put your health to the side. As husbands, it's and I'll claim this. It's so easy to be like, oh, like the sympathy weight is a real thing, right? When your wife gets pregnant, you're like, I'll gain a few pounds, and um, there's always excuses. There's always excuses, and so to answer your question, um, it's going okay. But what I've realized recently for myself is when it doesn't go okay, it has nothing to do with my physical health. It usually has a lot more to do with my mental health and my emotional health and my spiritual health. And
Hmm.
I started realizing how much of a stronghold food had on my life. And you don't think about it, but you know, and again, this is just my story, but so many times when, there's a stressful situation at home or at work or around money and there's anxiety for whatever reason. And, it's just so easy to just go to something that's comfortable. I think that's why, I mean, it's human nature, right? We all have vices. When we're struggling, there's things we want to turn to, whether it's food, whether it's porn, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's you know, um, inappropriate language, inappropriate behavior of any kind. Food's always been one of those things for me. So if I have a hard day at home or hard day at work, it's easy for me to just say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to eat the whole bag of chips. I'm going to eat the whole pizza. I'm going to whatever it is. So, it's been a journey. I've had really great moments too. There was actually 2 years ago. I really committed to it. I was following a specific diet plan. I was exercising. I was actually training for a 100-mile bike ride. And in that process, I lost 35 pounds. I felt really good.
What?
I was, my VO2 max was way up. Like my fitness, my ability to, live and not be breathing heavily.
Yeah.
And then my daughter was born, and I'm not gonna blame her, but I was like, oh, people are gonna be bringing us meals. I might have to just take a couple weeks off, and well, let's just say she's 16 months old, and I've 16 months is enough time, and I gained all that weight back plus some, and so the picture you're referencing is earlier this year, and I've had some progress, but there's been some setbacks, and I think again, this is just part of my journey. I think it's really important to try to get deeper to the root of what's going on. And I've realized for me, like my health and my weight and my physical health is almost more of a byproduct of my mental and emotional health and spiritual health. And when those things are
Hmm.
good, it's easy for me to stick to a plan and work out and I know that it all plays together, right? If you eat healthy and you work out and like it helps you better mentally and like it's a cycle, right? But it's a big flywheel and to get that flywheel going takes a lot of momentum and sometimes it's just hard. And I think that's life too, right? There's always going to be obstacles and situations that you're looking at. And it's like, yes, I want to do this. You start pushing that flywheel, like, what the? Like, this thing's freaking heavy. And it takes so long and it's so easy to give up on those goals and that, so that's been my journey with the health. I'm not giving up. I'm still pushing, still pushing, still pushing. The flywheel's not going as fast as I want, but I'm not going to give up. I might fail one day, one week. Vegas certainly wasn't the easiest place to eat healthy when you're dealing with fast food burgers and
No.
VIP parties with greasy sliders and everyone's getting sick and
Hey, but the lobster rolls though. Did you try those? Those are pretty good. They were coated in butter.
yes, so good. They were. Oh, that's what I'm
Dude.
saying, man. I got I got sick that night. Now, may or may not have had to do with other things being partaken. But on the food side, oh wow, that was not a low calorie buffet. Let's
No.
put it that way.
So I'm actually you mentioned something on top of like the things that you like have accomplished and then also the things that you are struggling with or continue to struggle with. You mentioned something and that's when it like clicked for me that like holy cow, we are so similar. Especially around the like weight loss, but also like physical health, the subcategories of physical health, your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, like all that stuff. Um, it's weird. I am like in the exact same boat. And something that I noticed is that you,
Yeah,
when presented with a challenge or like a huge stretch goal that like takes time and perseverance and like training in order to achieve, that you were like, you went on that
right.
100-mile bike ride, right? Did you? I'm sorry, I can't remember if you said it. Did you finish it?
Yeah, I've done it 3 times. The first time I got to like 92 miles, I had to tap out. The second time I didn't complete the training. But the third and oh no, the third time, yeah, the third time I completed it. So yeah,
Dude,
and you're right.
okay.
It's a process. I mean, you train for an endurance event. It takes like, I mean, it's a minimum of 3 or 4 months. And I'll stop talking because I think you're going to get to it, but there's some truth behind that.
Yeah, it's basically that like for me, and I think I'm seeing it for you too, when there's a huge audacious goal that cannot be instantaneously achieved or like a microwaved thing or anything like that, like we're driven to go do that because it's something that's like greater than us, than or like what we're immediately capable of. Like I'm capable of just like shutting the laptop, going to the gym, cranking out a workout, but it's like in my head I'm like, but why? Like what did I do it for? And I that is a struggle
Right.
point because there's so many people that are like, oh well, you do it so that it stacks on every day, so that you have fitness, so that you have mobility and strength, and so that you like have longevity. It's like, okay, yeah, but like those don't feel like goals to me. So um I think right now I weigh about 232 pounds at 6'1", which if you type it into whatever
Mm-hmm.
government website tells you if you're like obese or skinny, like I'm
You're
categorically
obese.
obese,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And I'm like, well, I don't
Yeah.
feel obese. I also like I don't look obese. Like maybe that's because I choose different types of clothing or whatever. But like when I've been presented with things like 75 hard, I crushed 75 hard. It by as long as you can get out of week two, it becomes like
Yeah.
autopilot. If you can get out of week two,
Yeah.
like
Right.
it is a no brainer, right? And it
Yeah.
actually like all the constraints ended up bringing some like structure and freedom to other parts of my life where it's like, okay, I'm saying no to things that are bad for me because I will fail 75 hard if I go do those things. Um,
Right.
and so it just gave me more opportunity like to create and provide value to the marketplace and like go and serve and help and all these
Yeah.
different things. And then another one is the 1,000-pound challenge. So after a motorcycle accident, I lost the ability to like lift my arm above my shoulder right here, and it took a lot
Sure.
of PT in order for me to be able to do this again and like be able to like I don't know fully
Wow.
move
Yeah.
my arm around. On the tail end of that, I was like, okay, well, I've got the capability to move the arm in a direction or another, but now it's like, okay, well, I want to build my strength back up. So I was like, how can I do that? Oh, 1,000-pound challenge. Perfect. So I worked and worked and worked. And then I eventually hired a personal trainer to help push me further and further. But like, I eventually hit the 1,000-pound challenge. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's, I believe it's a challenge put on by Rogue Fitness. There's three separate exercises. There's the deadlift, the back squat, and the bench press. And if you
Mm-hmm.
can like total all the weight up between those three exercises, and it exceeds 1,000 pounds, you're now in the 1,000-pound club, or you've successfully achieved the 1,000-pound challenge. Which was it was awesome.
Cool.
It's like when I pulled 405 pounds up off the ground, it was one of the best achievements of my entire life. But now,
Yeah.
where does that leave me like down the line? I feel like an astronaut who went to space and came back down and is looking around like what else does life have to offer here? You know? And I don't know if you feel
Yeah.
that way after your
Yeah.
bike races or anything like that, but it's like, well, like
Oh, for
if I'm
sure.
not if I don't have this giant audacious goal that is bigger than me, like I really
Yeah.
have a hard time being like, I'm just gonna go hit the gym today. I'm just gonna get a quick workout in. Like that's not. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, I've struggled with that a lot because I feel like the things that should motivate me, like my family and my wife and my kids, I mean, they're motivating, of course. And yes, that's that, like, I want to be healthy for them. So then why don't I? Right. And I've struggled with this. I still struggle with this question because I'm like, I don't know how to answer that sometimes. I don't have an answer. And I talked to my therapist at moments and I'm like, I actually said this to my therapist once. So we were talking about my health habits, and it was probably 3, 4, 5 months of like, yeah, I'm going to start, I'm going to do this, I want to do that, and he said, he stopped me one day. He said, Sam, when are you going to do it? Because, and this is him talking to me, because what I see is you like to talk about things and you like to start things, and you get a dopamine hit by talking about it and by looking into it and by researching it, and as soon as you start acting like it's happening, you get a dopamine hit and you start living as if you've already done it. And I notice this, and again, this is just me, but I've noticed this in my life when I'll start talking about something and it's like, yeah, I want to do that, but yet I still don't do it. And so you're right in a sense where these goals can be really, really helpful and motivating. But even this last one you mentioned, right? I took a picture. There's like this $50,000 challenge, right? Like, and it's put on by some fitness app, and it's like if you know, if you lose or have not lose the most weight, but like have the most transformation, like you can win a $50,000 grand prize. It's like, well, yeah, that's pretty motivating, you know. And my wife was on board too because she's like, yeah, we want to buy a house this year. That goes towards our down payment, you know. And it's been frustrating for me because I haven't been successful with it. And at this point, I think I'm beyond. Like you have to. I'm beyond qualification. Let's just put it that way because of the rules of the challenge. And so I look at that and I say, well, why didn't something like that motivate me? And I again I don't have an answer. And so I think it's interesting to go to the last part of your question where it's like, okay, you do something and you achieve it, and then your question is like, well, what's next? What continues to motivate me? And I think this is a much deeper conversation, but I think what I've discovered and what I'm really trying to pursue is we all have to figure out where our north star is and like what's really valuable to us, and establish a foundation of discipline in order to be who we know we're called to be. And so for me, it's not just about, oh, I want to be a good dad and I want to be a good husband and I want to do this for my wife and my kids or whatever. But it's like, okay, how do I need to show up every day? What are my daily tasks need to look like? And again, like it's easy for me based on my personality to talk about this stuff. So I could talk all day about all these plans that I have and the schedule that I put together, but like to go from talking to action, and I'll be honest, I don't have the answer. I'm on this journey, and it might be a lifelong journey for me to get to the point where I can actually say, yes, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing it. This is how I'm showing up. And I think, to go from, and this kind of applies to marketing too, like to go from, because in marketing, people do a lot of events. They go from event to event to event, like a challenge to a challenge or a webinar to a webinar, and they have no evergreen marketing. And so when they're between events, their revenue dips, and it's a whole thing. I think it's the same thing with like personal development, right? It's easy to have a goal and to work towards it, and I've done that before. But at some point, the goals either become less and less important, or the need to have consistency becomes more and more important. And I'm at that point now where it's like I need to figure out what that consistent, evergreen not revenue, the consistent evergreen momentum looks like in my life from a holistic health perspective: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, whatever, financial.
Yeah.
And because I'm realizing that even though goals help me, it's not a perfect solution. So I need to figure out what that North Star is. Like, what is my true purpose? and that transcends situations, it transcends relationships, it transcends time in a sense. And I know part of it for me does have to do with my faith in God and what my purpose is within his kingdom and all of that. And but regardless of what anyone's religious affiliation is, it's like those are the things that are going to drive you beyond an event or beyond a challenge or beyond a finite thing. And I
Yeah.
haven't discovered that for myself. And that's kind of where I'm at, is like even this most recent challenge that you so eloquently brought up. It's like, yeah, I've kind of failed at it, but I'm realizing that I think I need something more. And I don't really know what that looks like yet for me, but I at least acknowledge that there's a path, and I'm acknowledging that I'm taking steps. And sometimes, especially if people struggle with mental, I was not mental illness, but let's like just like, self doubt or depression or whatever it is. We all struggle at times, right? To get our foot up and to put a smile on our face and take a step. Sometimes we just need to put in the action, right? And I think that's why repetition can be so important, is when you're in those moments that you don't feel like getting up, or you don't feel like going to the gym, or you don't feel like not eating the food you should eat, or you don't feel like stopping drinking what you shouldn't be drinking, or whatever it is, right? It's the repetition and the discipline and having that North Star. So it's like, I know I'm heading in that direction and I know I'm taking steps and I don't know what's going to happen, but that's enough for now. I know the direction. I know what my next step is. Sometimes that's the only step you can take. But as
Yeah.
long as you know what direction you're heading in, nothing else matters. And again, I'm not saying this from a place of I figured it out. I'm like fresh on this journey right now. There's some very real and raw moments of this in my life that are like today, for the first time in a few weeks, that I've actually had real joy and real purpose in some of the things that I'm in my life that I haven't experienced in the last couple of weeks. So I'm like, I've just been taking those steps, and for whatever reason, something clicked in for me today, and now I'm able to walk in that direction. But if I didn't have that discipline of knowing my North Star and taking those steps, which I'm still figuring out,
Yeah.
you know, and I think no matter what you're doing or what your goals are, whether they're personal, whether they're professional, if you're young, if you're old, if you're single, if you're married, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're not an entrepreneur, it's just like to be better in life, to do better at life in general, or one very, very specific thing. It's like, know the real direction you want to head in and just start taking steps. And so that's
That's
kind of
the
been
whole
my journey,
reason.
is like,
That's the whole reason we call this
yeah,
Better Humans.
love it.
It's not the best humans. We're just getting a little
Right.
better, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. One step at a time.
Okay, really quick, you mentioned something, and I have to ask, and like I know you said like we can go like for however long. I need to go help my wife with dinner and go try to be the best husband I can be
Absolutely.
and the best father I can
Yes.
be.
There you
So we're gonna
go.
land this plane, right? But I
Yes.
can't move on without addressing something, because I actually think that this is also really important for anyone else who's going to listen in. You said for the first time
Yes.
in a while you have felt joy. I have
Yeah.
also, for we'll probably say like 6 months now. Probably, yeah, probably a little longer than that. I have not been feeling excitement, and for anything outside of like certain things in like my marriage, and then like anything that has to do with my baby, like I feel
Of
excitement
course.
and joy there. But for literally anything else, I'm like robot. Like it like the facts are what the facts are. Like, and I don't interpret them. I know that my alligator brain is like evaluating them, right? But I'm not feeling
hmm
joy. I'm not feeling excitement or anticipation or surprise or like anything like that. Delight, like none of the good emotions. I'm like, why am I not feeling any of the good emotions? I'm leaning towards it's a dopamine thing, which I took Instagram off my phone for a long while. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know what that is. I don't know if we have time to go into that today, but like, okay, there you go. Round two. That is exactly what we need to start with. It's like, hey, Sam, why do we hate our lives? Like that can be that can be the start to the second episode. Um, yeah.
I
I
will
needed
just
to
say
put that out there.
I will just say very yeah, I'll just say very briefly, you mentioned dopamine and it's 100% a dopamine thing. And yet I think it goes much deeper than that. I think we all are going to have seasons of life where we struggle with, self-doubt, depression, anxiety, fear of failure, feeling what is it, imposter syndrome, right? All
Right.
all these things, and we all struggle with it. Even the top of the top. I've been behind the doors of some of the highest, like most expensive masterminds out there, where people are paying $250,000 just to have a seat in the room. I happen to be a guest of a seat. I didn't pay that. Nonetheless, um, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter how high you are, how low you are. We all struggle. And I think it's just realizing that,
Yeah.
and realizing that as human beings, we're not always going to be happy. We're not always going to be content. And I think that's why having that North Star is just so important, because you can be so disillusioned and so disoriented and so lost, and you know, um, having vertigo, and you're just like, I have no idea where I'm at. But as clear as you can be on that direction, right? Think of it as a magnetic pole, right? If you think about the true North Star, North Pole, it's like, I know that I'm supposed to go in this direction, even though I can't even see it, I can't even feel it. And getting to a point where you can make those steps without confidence and without emotion, like that's really, really helpful. So
Mm.
yeah, I'd love to dive into that, because again, like right now, I'm a student. Like I'm not going to be invited on anyone else's podcast to talk about this, because I'm like very much like learning and trying to discover it for myself. But I
Well,
think it is
you're
important to
invited
just
on
acknowledge
this
that we
one to
all
come talk
struggle with
about
it.
it.
No,
Like,
we don't all wake up every day to be absolutely. Let's do it.
yeah, dude.
For
Okay,
sure.
so by the way, this is on my list. I don't know if that's going to come through on the camera, but it basically is it's a book by Nick Hall. I know what to do, so why don't I do it? It's on my Audible list after the next book
Ooh,
I'm reading here. So um,
love it. Yeah.
we got to figure this out. I mean, I think it's our duty as
Yep.
men and husbands to figure it
For
out.
sure.
Um,
Yep.
but yeah, okay. So we're we're approaching like a good ways over an hour here. Sam, I uh I had more questions for you, but our discussion has been like so good so far. I think what I need to do is I need to land this plane, and I'll like highlight the questions that I didn't ask here, and we'll just bring it to the next conversation.
There
But
you
really
go.
quick on
Let's
the
go.
like I mentioned earlier that
Yeah.
like we're just gonna do a couple quick questions. Um, so
Yep.
the rapid fire portion here, like, are you still on a worship team? What do you do with the worship team if you are?
Yeah. Interestingly, my wife and I just transitioned to a different church last year. We were at one church for like 15 years, and we just felt like God was calling us to this other church. There was no drama, there was no issues. We still
Yeah.
love the other church, have friends there, but it was a calling, and I have not felt the release, if you will, to pursue that at this new church. So as of this conversation, the answer is not much, which is also kind of giving me more of an itch to do, music on the side or a
Yeah.
YouTube channel or something. And 2 days ago, for the first time in probably 10 years, I actually wrote down lyrics that came to me. I'm like, oh, am I gonna write songs again? So not a whole lot right now, but I'm hoping to do some music here this year, even if it's not, at a church.
I love
So
that. I love little like transition points like this because you end up like
yeah,
discovering and having like the craziest like God interactions and revelations and stuff like that. So, all
for
right,
sure.
which is better, The Office or Parks and Rec?
Office, dude. Every mockumentary sitcom since The Office is copying The Office. Like there is no question. I grew up a little bit after Seinfeld and Friends, so I never really got into those. So The Office was my real first like sitcom.
Okay,
There's nothing else out there. Nothing will
dude.
compare ever. That's me. I've tried Parks and Rec. I've tried Community. I just can't do it. It's all The Office
Yeah,
all
I
the
never
time.
Community never clicked for me, but boy, I watched The Office 9 times in a row. Um, for me, between the two, I've actually
Yeah.
laughed harder at Parks and Rec, but I think that The Office is more continuously like entertaining and funny. Um, so yeah, it's I don't
Well,
know
and
exactly where
at
I
some
lean.
point you commit to the cast, you commit to the stories. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely. Okay. I have more rapid fire questions, but I actually am going to save those for the next time that we talk. That is me auto inviting you out for another
Love it.
follow
Let's
up
do it.
episode sometime soon. But the last thing that I kind of want to go over is Sam,
Absolutely.
yeah, love it. Thank you. What is the best way for somebody to get connected with you?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it earlier. My handle on social media everywhere is Watch Sam Build. And, like I said, I don't really have a brand or a real strong idea around that yet, but hopefully I'm able to share insights and stories into what I'm doing, and that can inspire other people to do what they know they're supposed to do. So watch Sam Build, and yeah, that's where I'm at.
I love it. Okay, great. This has been amazing. I am pleasantly surprised at like how like I didn't think that we were gonna have a bad time or anything like that, but I was like, you were saying things and I'm like yes, it's like you get me. You and like we were experiencing some of the same stuff. And this dude, I appreciate you coming on and like being open and honest about a lot of this stuff because like there's stuff that you're like, yeah, this has been amazing, this has been
Absolutely.
really really good, and then there's stuff that you're like, this has been like so, it's been okay. And I think that's I really appreciate you just being upfront and honest with a lot of the answers that you gave here today. So yeah.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
you have any other questions,
Yeah,
like
sounds good,
obviously hit
man.
me up in a text. And this has been Sam Hodgett on the Better Humans podcast. Thanks so much.